Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about a large storm system that will be developing across the United States. Now the first part of this system has already left quite a bit of severe weather across Nebraska and Kansas, and it's currently producing a lot of storms and heavy rain across Oklahoma, the Texarkana area, into portions of northern Texas and Arkansas. And this thing will combine with a coastal system off the northeast coast and develop into, well, potentially the first snowstorm of the year. Now, this won't be affecting the snow, at least large metropolitan areas. However, it could impact just north of the major southern Canadian cities along the St. Lawrence River Valley. And then this thing will move out and provoke quite a bit of cool air behind it. So as you can see right here, this is where it could be producing some snow into the weekend. But there's a lot more to this, as it could be producing quite a bit of heavy rain, and there's a lot of dynamic features with this system that I kind of want to go over. So right now, this is what it looks like. Notice what we have is well, you can't really see from here, but we do have a low pressure that did come and traverse through the plains, and right now it is pretty strong, and there is a cold front that is getting quite a bit of moisture from the south, and it's getting quite a bit of support from a lot of warm air, a lot of humidity around, and you can see that it's producing very heavy rain across Oklahoma, Texas, and whatnot. And notice that we do see this cold front develop into tonight, where it becomes more obvious. Now, we have another separate low pressure that is a lot weaker, but behind it is a decent area of cold air, and it has quite a bit of oomph to it, if you will. And here's that coastal system, the one that is tracking, that is going to be folding into this one, as you will see in just a bit, as I'll show you. Notice that we have that cold front right, and we have that upper low that is developing and strengthening. With it, there already probably will be some snow across central southern Ontario. Notice quite a bit of cool air behind this. And here we have a coastal system. Now, mostly, this cold front would, normally just mostly skedaddle out of here with pretty normal timing, right? But because of this coastal storm that is diverging a lot of strong southwesterly winds into the northeast, there's going to be a lot more moisture here, so really we do see a lot of moisture starting to develop out ahead of it, but it also slows this thing down. Now, there's a pretty strong trough here, right? So this system also gets pulled in by this one. Firstly, this one gets stopped by this one, and then this one with its trough pulls in this one. So notice as we see this going into the northeast on Saturday, we see this thing develop and strengthen into a pretty good size system, some strong northeasterly winds, and across this upper trough you can see it becomes completely tilted, and this thing swoops in around. So while this will provoke obviously quite a bit of heavy precipitation potentially for the northeast, especially as this initial cold front becomes almost completely stationary. Look at New England right there into Saturday. Throughout the day, it's almost stationary, right? And then we see this thing shoot very heavy moisture all the way into that cold air, which provokes quite a bit of snow on the backside of this. There could be, even up to a foot of snow across southern Canada here. And this all the while is promoting very cool air sliding into the Midwest and Northeast. So a lot of these areas will cool down over the weekend and will stay cool for a while as a result of this guy. And this is what I meant initially, that this thing will be completely traveling westward, which isn't super usual for systems across the upper Midwest. And this thing gets completely cut off from the jet stream. You can see it's just chilling right there. Obviously weekends, right? But showers and whatnot still continue. We could still see some pretty decent lake effect rain, which is also very interesting. And by the time this thing's all said and done, you can see this is midweek next week, the total accumulated precipitation is obviously pretty high, especially where these two systems merge. But more interesting is that snowfall that I was talking about, right? So the total snowfall from this system could again reach over a foot of snow here across Ontario and Quebec, and this could even extend into portions of the Adirondacks there into the northeast along those highest elevations. So that is that. I want to show you also the 2-meter temperature shaded, the anomaly, just to show you how cool of the air this system will bring and how it will react. So obviously out ahead of the system there's very warm air. I'm sure most of you across the Midwest and Northeast and even the South have been dealing with very warm conditions, so this will be pretty welcome. You can see this cool blast moves in this weekend, and it sticks around for a lot longer than it typically would. Obviously it still loses its intensity, but it sticks around for a lot longer because of this system that just continuously spins and doesn't really move out. Eventually though, next week we do see warming conditions out ahead of another big system, which could be even larger than this one that we're currently about to deal with. So again, this storm has already been occurring. Yesterday the severe weather was across Nebraska, Colorado, and Kansas. There was a bit of that the hail, tornadoes, and whatnot. And now this thing has shifted towards the east and will get picked up by a new system, or sorry, I guess, yeah, that upper level low that's coming down from southern Canada, and then eventually merge with that new one across the northeast, but not before it drops quite a bit of risk for some large cities: Norman, Wichita, Denton, and obviously Dallas, Fort Worth, Oklahoma City, and that slight risk. The main threat here, you can see tornadoes are pretty low. It's going to be wind and hail, especially that hail earlier on is definitely more of a concern. And right now, if you were to look at the radar, which you can see right here, a little bit fuzzy. Let me see if I can zoom in with the National Weather Service radar. It's, you can see a lot of flash flood warnings. I mean, this map is just lit up with so many different advisories, and you can see there's a lot of severe thunderstorm watches, severe thunderstorm warnings laid over, and this will just kind of produce a large conglomerate that moves towards the south and east overnight. And further north, you can see we are beginning to develop these showers with that cold front that will begin to develop across Illinois, Missouri, and Indiana. European model, according to this, according to the European model, you can see there's that cold front developing. These showers continue across Oklahoma, redeveloping several rounds into Texas, Arkansas, which is why there are those flash flood warnings, and they're very heavy rain producers. So again, there's that cold front, there's the upper level low that is kind of steering this thing along out ahead of that pretty strong trough of cool air. And you can see there's that coastal system. So normally this thing would just move out, but that system kind of stops it. It gets wrapped in, just like the GFS showed it. European shows an even stronger system hitting a main right there, and boom, this thing does end up producing quite a bit of snow as well. Maybe not as much as GFS, but you could definitely see some ice and snow as that precipitation slides right into that cool air mass, setting like a perfect setup for some early season snow there for Canada. And then you can see we see more activity later on, obviously. But just like the GFS, this keeps the cool air in around for a lot longer, but also increases the precipitation amounts for these areas. You can see especially where these two systems merge. Again, there could be several inches of rainfall. In terms of total snowfall, the European doesn't show as much as a GFS, but it definitely still shows some amounts. You can see approaching even half a foot of snow, which is definitely there, definitely significant enough to be noticeable, especially this early on in the year. The Canadian model is also a different model that shows almost a foot of snow, similar to the GFS, but even further westward. So that's something interesting to note for. And if you were to look at the National Weather Service map of advisories and alerts, again, the main ones are here for this for these thunderstorms. And if you were to go across the northeast, I don't think there are any any advisories yet of any kind, but I do assure you that there could be quite a bit of rain from this as we go forward. Let me take a look and show you just a HRRR model. So this is just kind of the next 18 hours and how this thing will progress. So notice we're dealing with a lot of rain and thunderstorms across the south, which is pretty accurate. This model is showing that 8 p.m. you can see not much activity further north, but as you go into the overnight hours, notice quickly how this develops into a strong line of storms, which could push through Dallas, which is why they're also under a slight risk of severe weather there. Very heavy rain with this, especially if some of these storms do end up training. And look, we do see a front kind of start developing across Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, and this thing will kind of connect from that southern piece of those thunderstorms into the overnight hours, and this is just the next 18-ish hours, and you can see that tomorrow will be a very wet and rainy day for a lot of these folks here in Illinois, southern Illinois, Indiana, up into Michigan. And if you were to go back a few model runs prior, where the HRRR model goes out even more, you can see that this thing progresses through the day, weakening as it goes, but still some rain for the Ohio. You can see Pennsylvania, into Toronto there, into late Thursday, early Friday. And then we see that upper trough right there with that trough from that cool air. We even see some snow showers potentially across North Dakota and extreme northern South Dakota. And then we see that coastal system, which would eventually again collide with this one and spark quite a bit of excessive rainfall. The HRRR doesn't go out that far, but the NAM, the one that goes out 84 hours, shows that, and you can see, boom, there it is. It converges, and again, this thing will play out for a decent amount of time. And if you were to take a look at the Canadian high resolution, so this is another one that goes out to 84 hours. There's that cold front developing into the overnight today. You can see quite some heavy rain across Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, that upper low right there, driving that cold air in behind it. That will obviously produce quite a bit of necessary ingredients in order for this system to kind of collide and then backtrack into that cool air, producing that snow. And you can see they definitely show those two systems perfectly merging. and if this were to go out even more, it would definitely show some of that snow on the backside here. So yeah, this is quite an interesting storm, and there is some flooding concern because notice how vertically, initially from a more west to east direction, right, this front becomes more south to north. Like as it stalls out across upstate New York there, that could lead to some pretty heavy rainfall amounts. And in fact, if you were to look at the total accumulated precipitation, it really maximizes some of these amounts over here, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches, which is quite a significant amount of rain, especially across the hilly areas, and given the fact that it's been pretty wet there as of recent. So that's what this is what the Canadian shows in a long term. This is what the GFS shows, and then the European. So they're all pretty similar with that cold front kind of stalling out along that Vermont and New York line, state line. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's basically it. That's basically what I wanted to show you, just this system. There are a few other features, like the European 2-meter temperature anomaly. I showed you the GFS one, so again, very hot out ahead of this thing, but then that upper low drives a lot of that cool air in, and you can see it's pretty brief for the south, right? It warms back up pretty quickly, but for the Midwest and Northeast, it stays put for a bit longer, into potentially midweek next week with that system spinning around, but eventually things do warm back up. And one thing of note is that there will most likely be another system on the heels of this one that comes barreling through the plains. This one could also have quite a bit of heavy rain, potentially some severe weather, and it really sticks along for a while. Notice how it also almost stalls out across the northeast with some potentially very heavy rain, according to the GFS, and this thing just continues kind of recycling in a similar fashion to this one we have right now, which will also introduce some fairly cooler conditions for the northeast. I wouldn't say anything massive, but definitely keeping things on the cooler side as opposed to anywhere else dealing with quite a bit of that heat. It looks as if the heat is pretty much everywhere, and that cool weather is a lot less common, at least now in the fall here. So that's also interesting to note. European, it does go out that far, and you can see that this is what it shows from that secondary system that the GFS showed. It's more of a southern tracking storm, but definitely still shows a lot of activity, a lot of storm potential, and takes a more southern track. So will be interesting to see what it does with this one as it compared to the GFS. But again, for now, we do have this system that is developing, obviously, with that upper low driving that cold air down. There will be some frost and freeze advisories. Would not be surprised to see some scattered snow showers here across potentially Thursday night into Friday. You can see they show that rain snow chances. Nothing big, obviously, but, you know, the first flakes of the season for some of these areas. And yeah, we'll just have to, into the overnight hours, watch for this cold front to start developing across these areas and where exactly this heavy rain sets up, because the models haven't had exactly the best handling on this. Alright, that's basically it, guys. I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya.